Alright, here we go. So, stuff I've planned is showing the vector layer, how to use a 3D figure, like the posing and 3D objects in general, and the use of masks and tones in Clip Studio Paint. And I guess as everyone funnel in, is there a subject that you're curious about? You can type in the chat for 1, 2, or 3. If there's no preference, I'll just start from the top. Any preferences? Alright, I guess no preferences. Alright. Okay, maybe I can convince you. So, you guys know in what's it called? In like a graphics like program, there are raster lines, and then there are vector lines. So glad everyone can make it. So just to go over, in Clip Studio, the vector function is not real vector. So you're not using Adobe Illustrator or something. But you still retain some of the benefits. So some disadvantages of raster line is that, so for example, you're doing like line art, right? I need a more obvious brush to show this. So you do like a line, like, oh, this is like a very nice and clean resolution, but the moment you scale it up or you scale it down and then you scale it up, like if you do the interpolation, like you can see how the line's losing quality. And like if you do it even more extreme, like this, and then you scale it back up, like it's gone. Like this is unusable. And this is due to something also called interpolation. So let's say I take this and I rotate it. You can see here anti-aliasing. I don't know if you guys know that term either. So anti-aliasing refers to like, I can show you this easier on a smaller canvas. 1 second. So let's do like a 64 by 64. Okay. Kind of tangenting. See, the thing is, the sharpen filter it's still, you're still losing information. So I'll sell you the benefits of raster in a second, but I do want to give you guys the context. Alias? Oh, I don't know how to. Okay, there's a selling guide. So right now this is 0, right? You can see the, like I'm filling in whole pixels here, and this controls your anti-aliasing in Clip Studio. And maybe we should talk a bit about the layout. You can see my layout is like jam-packed with stuff, and I like to do this because I use 3D programs, and in 3D programs there are a lot of shelves and items you can click. So an easy way to bind something is if you right click and do quick access setting, you can take any command here, like let's say, I don't know, create this one, add. You see it added a little icon here, and instead of going up into the menus, you can just click the icon. And I like this better than a shortcut because there's a visual indicator. But sorry to go on the tangent. So this is none. Like I can't. This is a 64 by 64 canvas, by the way. So this is like pixel art. I can't even write. So level 1 anti-aliasing, you can clearly see like my resolution like doubled, right? No, this is like a normal brush. So my canvas is 64 by 64, but see at AA, oh, come on, at AA1, like you see our resolution pretty much doubled, right? And at level 2, I pretty much just go level 1. That's the most I go. But like level 2, assuming it's like even softer. Level 3, like it's kind of negligible. But going from 0, like going from 0 here to 1, you're pretty much getting like double resolution. So why am I talking about this? Well, the problem is these half pixels, like they can't be filled, or they're very difficult to get filled. So let's say I make a selection, right? And I fill it like this. You see the half pixels get ignored pretty much. And even if I crank up the tolerance and do this, when I fill, like these half pixels still remain unfilled. Yet with 0 anti-aliasing, everything becomes filled. So why am I talking about this? You want to keep anti-aliasing consistent, okay? You either do yes, like yes anti-aliasing, or no anti-aliasing. And you always want to be aware of that, right? So the problem here is when you draw a line with no anti-aliasing with like raster graphics, and then let's say you transpose something and you scale it up, and you have this any other interpolation other than hard edge. Well, like hard edge also has its own problems. Like it does not retain resolution like at all. Everything just becomes more jagged. So anti-aliasing can just mess you up in like the weirdest ways. Like you see now this becomes, even if you sharpen it, like I have sharpen right here, if I click sharpen, you sharpen it like a lot, and at this point the quality is like ruined. So it's like, yeah, there are no good solutions to this except for, I think vector is not a bad solution. Okay, now we're on to the actual thing we're going to talk about. So vector lines, if I just draw a line, there's like nothing different about it, right? But the moment this is one of the most powerful tools in Clip Studio. It's the object tool. So it's under operation object. I have a hotkey to Q. So this pretty much controls everything in the program. And you can see the moment I click on it, like there are control points. You can move it. But that's just the start. So if I click on it, click on this line, like nothing happens. I just move it around. But this line, you have all these controls. And let's not even get started over here. So the tool property is like contextual, especially when you're using the object tool. And everything you click on has like a different tool property menu, and you access it with the object tool. And object tool like switches contextually. So I could show you some more applications later, but let's focus on this for now. So you can see the first thing is that you can change anti-aliasing like on the fly, like so. You can even change like the size. You can see it's affecting it here as well. So you could cut this line, paste it here, paste it here as a new line, And yeah, you can change the brush size. You can change like brush properties here. Like I would say these aren't that useful unless you're doing like chains or whatever, right? And yes, before you ask, you can use this with like a pattern brush. Let me just new vector layer. Pattern. Let's see. And also like this. And yep, this is changeable. Like so. You can even change the size. All that cool stuff. The other good thing is that when you say you want to scale this line up, see when I scale it up, it doesn't lose any resolution. When I scale it down and back up, it's still the same. It's not losing resolution, right? And you can change aliasing on the fly, so, and you can do like everything to it. Like it doesn't lose any resolution, and you can change it. You can change it back if you want to. Change back to. So it's very versatile in that sense. To be honest, it's just annoying. It's just a little annoying. I personally don't use it that much either. So you have to use like a solid brush like this. You can use like a pencil as well, but the moment you get into like painterly brushes, like an airbrush, like it's like not necessary. So every line you make makes a vector curve. So this is like a vector curve, right? This line with the dots on it, that's a vector curve. And literally every stroke you make makes one of these. So you could even take an eraser, erase across, and guess what? The eraser line made a vector curve. So you're not actually erasing stuff, you're adding more curves. So how the hell do we like erase stuff, right? This might just blow your mind, so grab onto your seats. So the vector erasers, these are specially made to erase vector lines. And you have 3 different modes. I believe, let me see. This is, so, one second. This, so you have 1, 2, 3. So this is number 1, 2, 3. Number 1. So I have 3 different ones here, but it's just different modes. These 3 different modes. So number 1 is, you can see it, you can read it. Erases touched areas. So it acts like a normal eraser. But you can see it actually severs the vector lines, the vector curves, I mean. So this does not add extra curves. Like right here, I can move this line. After I sever it, it's cut and it's 2 different curves. And the second mode is called erase up to intersection, and it does exactly what it says, erases up to the intersection. Like this. These become separate now. And this is super useful for like hair strands. You just want to like crisscross like this, you can just touch it. So this is super useful for that. Any like, I'm drawing a box, I should totally use this. If you do something like this, all these are intersecting. Just go like boop 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 boop. It's pretty handy. pretty handy. But it does leave some artifacts, which you do just have to clean up. And yeah, like I said before, if you use a regular eraser to erase, it leaves a curve. And when you use a vector eraser, this can erase like the eraser stroke. So sometimes if you're not careful, you're gonna reveal stuff. So when you use vector layers, use vector erasers. Like normal erasers are just not good. And then one number 3, this erases the whole line. So pretty self-explanatory. It just nukes the whole line, like the whole curve. So this curve connected, boom, it's gone. Some other useful tools, I bind it here. So I think these are all the vector related tools here. So yeah, control point. Control point just moves control points, and you can read what everything does. This adds a control point. So go ahead and experiment with it. And this other one, pinch vector line, is quite useful. It's like liquefied, but not really. So you can like drag this thing out like this. There are like different modes to it. Yeah. And the really good thing about this is that it doesn't lose any resolution, so you can just keep going forever. Some of this thin line, like you can make the line thinner. This line with this one is thickened, so it makes things thicker. And the rest of these I don't really use, honestly. But most useful one here is pinch line. This allows you to move it in interesting ways. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. Other than that, there are some interesting properties with fill. Like, this says you can fill up to vector path, include vector path. If it's up to vector path, for multiple, like else. I believe this fills up to the path, so it actually goes in the stroke, so that's fairly useful. So one comment is like this seems kind of hard to implement to a drawing process. So most of the time the vector layer you only really use for line art, like just line art, or some very specific cases like a chain, or yeah, that's pretty much it. But I would say if you're doing like hardcore like line art, it does it helps with some of the frustrations. For me, especially the resolution changes. Like if I want to rotate, like yeah, and for animation as well, like especially animation. So the thing that peeves me the most is this kind of thing. Like if I move this line, if I rotate it slightly, it messes up my aliasing. So like the ability to never lose any resolution is like, it's a godsend. But the problem is I don't do line art that often, so kind of wasting that. Lastly, to convert this to a raster layer, you just hit Control R or rasterize, and it's now a normal layer, and yep, it's normal. Okay, any questions before we move on to the next topic? All right, let's move on to the next topic. And again, at the end, I do want to try to make a piece with everything I've covered, but that'll require me to do line art, so I don't really want to do that. All right. How many of you have used the 3D model in Clip Studio, or have used like a posing model? Nice. Anyone else? Okay, I will introduce you to everyone to the Clip Studio model. So at a glance, some basic controls is you're gonna use the object tool for pretty much 99% of things. Okay, so if you click on the canvas and drag, you rotate the camera. If you middle mouse click, so one thing is you need a mouse to do 3D. Like you just got you just need it. Middle mouse to pan, and elsewhere to zoom. And if you want to actually zoom in on the canvas, I hold Alt. I don't know what it is for everyone else. You just use Z. I recommend everyone to bind the object tool to something that you use often. Okay. Before we get posing, I want to explain a few things. So let's first look at like the types of joints. So when you pose, you could pose it like a action figure, right? Like, oh, bend the arm, double click this, bend this. I want to make him walk, so okay, this is not really working, but it's like, oh, I want to make him walk or run, but it's so tedious. Now I gotta bend this. If you want to try something unpredictable, you just like drag the body part. Like I don't know what it does. Like it's so weird. So yeah, this is quite unpredictable. But you can see there are these joints, but there are also these joints, and these joints are like, oh, that's an entirely different like interface, right? So if you move this, I'm like, oh, the whole arm moves. Like what's going on here? So how do we use these controls? And to revert it, you just hit this, reverse the original pose. And gotta talk a little bit about the tool property. So for all of you, this might actually, you might not have everything here. So if you click this tool bench, you see like everything, right? Every single option this thing has. And to expose these parameters, so to put it on the top right, this is like your hotbar, this is like everything else. To expose it, you just hit the eyeball. Now you see it appears. So for anything you use often, it's a good idea to hit this eyeball so you can access it. But let's go into the joints. So the elbow joint, this, everyone knows elbow rotates. This is called a FK joint or forward kinematics. But the other joint, which I'm just going to use simple models like this. The other joint, you move by moving the hand, right? This is called an IK joint, which is inverse kinematics. So imagine if you want this guy to hold a cup. Let me reset. I'm just going to draw a cup he wants the cup. Let's hold the cup or the beer. You could like, oh, he's gonna do this, and oh, he's a little more natural. Have him bent. It's gonna bend it like this. It's like, yeah, you can do it, but it's such a hassle, right? Oh, I want to move the shoulder up a bit. Oh, now the arm is gone. Like I gotta rotate this back now. Oh, arm's too bent. I gotta straighten it. See, this is an actual hassle, but you can get there, right? But if you use this nifty control, uh, this control here, so it's well organized on the Studio model. Like the blue dots are the IKs, and any of the body parts. I think all the body parts are FK controls. But if you hit the blue dot, just drag it up, see, and reach the cup right away. Twist his arm, and like I use like 2 moves. It's actually like insanity. Mission accomplished. Cup, yeah, indeed. So, what other joints are like IK, and what other joints would benefit from this, right? So earlier I was trying to walk. I was trying to make him walk, and instead of bending his leg like this and doing this, trying to get him walk, there's a blue IK joint here, and you can just slide his leg forward like so, right? And slide like so. But the most, perhaps the most influential joint of the body, same with same in real life. So let me see if I remember the skeleton, like how it's rigged. I don't mean a traditional skeleton. So I think it's like joint here. It's like this. I think it's like this. The leg is like one. I think it goes like so. So on. There's one joint in here that everything originates from. And it's this one right here. It's called the root joint. And since it, oh, I should probably do this. Doesn't get in the way. The root joint is very important because it controls the center of gravity. So this right here is the root joint, and when I move it, you see, they're like, the entire body moves, literally everything. Like, it's kind of funny. It never gets old. So if you want the center of gravity to be lower, you just drag him down, and everything literally follows, right? And if you want some contrapasso, you can twist this. And then this top joint. This is kind of silly. This top joint controls this. And his arm's kind of fucked, but. Okay, let's say I'm still trying to get him to walk. Let's do this. Doing a sassy walk. If you guys want to play along, or follow along, because this is fun. Some fun stuff. See, with the IK, it's a lot easier to move. I think to move the figure the way you want it to, right? And I got the walk. Like a post-war walk down in decent amount of time, and it looks quite natural too. It's not super stiff because you're manipulating the root joint. Okay. Time to reset. I'm doing usual recording, so don't worry about it, Rand. So the next thing is I guess like posing in general. It's like if I want to pose him in this angle, like a top down angle like this, it's like really annoying to like select this part, like do this. And then now I gotta like, oh, I want to pose like the hands. Like now I gotta zoom in and like do stuff, right? And oh, now I forgot my original camera angle. Like I I gotta like move it back. So is there a way to make this a bit less painful? So coming up here, Windows, this thing, all sides view. You click this. It opens a window like this. Okay. This might look really intimidating, but I promise you it's your best friend. So you can see these two are at different angles, and there are also other views here. You might not know what these are for, but it'll be very clear in a second. So when I rotate the camera here, it's not affecting the camera here. So I'm actually free to pose in here, and it's updating here. And I can pose it however I want. And these orthographic views are very useful as well. Alright, take care. Thank you for attending. Hope you learned something. And yeah, I would highly recommend everyone to use this window because it makes posing like 10 times easier. It's under Windows, all sides view. So window, all sides view. Another thing that really dictates, I think this is the main, for me, the main appeal of 3D is being able to draw different camera angles or camera lenses, right? So if I did a pose like this, this is a top-down angle, right? But this is like, unfortunately, I know perspective better in like the lens millimeter, but this slider controls how much perspective there is. So when I decrease perspective, you can even see the grid here. The grid is very uniform. There's no distortion. Opposed to when I really stretch it. Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't exactly remember when they added all sides view, but they've definitely been adding a lot more 3D features. I'm pretty sure you still have like this perspective slider though, and some of the basic camera stuff. So you can see when I crank up the perspective, like the grid is more distorted, and yeah, this is like a wide lens for like action shots. One option to make sure you click is this link camera advancing and retreating. This is crucial. I don't remember exactly what is preventing, but I just know when you have this off, it is so annoying. So have this on. Just gonna put it in chat. Link camera advancing / retreating. And staying on the topic of perspective, I'm just gonna go in here to kind of just go over the important stuff. So buckle up. Uh, Other than that, there's this manga perspective, which makes things more dramatic by like scaling things up. That's near the camera. So without it, it's like it looks fairly normal. With manga perspective, it gets crazy. So use that sparingly. Right. Under pose, this is some fairly useful stuff. Uh, I think these are totally not essential. You can just go through it, and it's kind of for fun. So this mirrors left to right, and you can check these off. If I don't want the legs to mirror, you just do this, and legs didn't mirror, just arms. So fairly useful if you want a symmetrical pose. Just the drawing figure tab, you can do some funny stuff. You can change body type. The Attack on Titan. I'll make a aberrant Titan here. And you can even get weirder. It's like custom character creation stuff. Like you can make the head like God, it's so stupid. But I pretty much never mess with this. Unless there's like a very specific proportion that you want. So feel free to have fun and show me your custom characters. This outline just applies a thin outline, and it's pretty useful most of the time. Light sources, you can the lighting definitely not the best aspect of Clip Studio, but you can get some basic lighting, like basic stuff. This controls the intensity, and yeah, this ambient light controls the ambient light, pretty self-explanatory. And cast shadows will get rid of the cast shadows. One thing I like to do is I like to turn stuff on and off in the rendering settings. So this menu kind of encompasses quite a few things. So you can add outline here. You can also turn off the texture, so the grid and lines on this figure. You can turn on and off cast shadows. You can turn on and off the light source as well. And yeah, this menu is pretty useful. Yeah, they really I think they really invested into the 3D features. I don't know if that was like the best choice, because I still think this feature is fairly niche. I think it's that like it's not like a groundbreaking thing. So the other thing is like when you drag in a new 3D figure in, if you drag it right in here, it actually places it in the same scene. So you see, they're actually in the same scene. Whoops. Old Maya habits. They're in the same scene. When you rotate the camera, they rotate together. But the moment you, if you drag it in onto your layers, these are now different. They're in different scenes, and they do not obey the same perspective. And one more thing is like, especially when you're working with high or shallow lenses, so a lot of distortion. If you middle click drag to move it up, let's say I want this figure on the top right. When you drag it like this, do you see how significantly the angle changed? And this is now you're in the same pose. So you have to do move layer, this option, the move layer option, and then you're able to move without the camera moving, if that makes sense. So that's super helpful. A few more minor things like this on-screen manipulator. Like this can be overwhelming. So if you just want to move stuff, you can turn off rotate and scale. and now you can only move stuff. Self-explanatory. Pretty simple. And yeah, lastly, or I know I said that a couple times already. This is the hierarchy. So this is kind of like your layers. It's like your layers within the 3D scene, right? So if I get this figure, cut and paste, you can see I have the figure here. I can turn it on and off. I can lock it and stuff. And some other useful 3D things. I think the primitives are pretty useful. Like a cube. You can use a cube as a placeholder for a lot of things. This is also where the manipulator hiding comes in helpful, or it comes in handy, because you can, and also the all sides view, also very handy. And this snap feature, actually, I gotta turn this off. This is so distracting. The snap feature also has this rotation step. So if you want to rotate in like 15-degree angles, like this allows you to do that. And yeah, one more thing is that you can actually parent stuff, which is a 3D term I'll explain in a second. Come on. Why is it not working? One second. I had this working like, oh, here we go. So you can actually drag and drop this in here, and then you can do left hand. Oh, what is happening? Left hand. Oh. Let me just shrink this a bit. Can I move this? And then when I move the left hand, it actually follows the joint. So you can think of many ways that could be helpful. Like you can parent a weapon to like to the hand. So I'm gonna explain briefly about hierarchy. Just briefly, because this is a very technical term. So in 3D, there's like a parent, and then there's child, also siblings, and then the child can also have a child, and the child becomes a parent. So this is kind of the relationship. So you can see here, the root joint is the parent for all the joints in the body. That's why moving it moves everything else. And this shoulder joint is the parent to the elbow joint. It's the parent to the wrist joint. It's the parent to all the hand bones. The metatarsals, I think. I don't know if I remember my anatomy. So you get the idea. A child inherits a parent's properties. So this includes translation, rotation, and scale. So when you scale this joint, everything else scales with it. And this relates to this. You're just parenting the cube to the joint on the hand. So that's a very simplified view of of 3D. Anyone have any questions? That is like the end of my 3D ramble. And later I could show you how to properly draw over like a 3D model, but I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Any questions? All right. Are things interesting for everyone? I hope it's inspiring you to maybe try some new workflows. So last thing is masks, tones, opacity. So does anyone here use a lot of masks at all? Like for like rendering, for just general use? So a mask is like, how do I describe a mask? A mask is just a linear, like, it's like a linear processor. So here it is 1, here it's 0. But I know there's a lot of ways to go about it. It's like, maybe in Clip Studio, in the values, like you could say this is 255 and this is 0. So, Calvis, this might be perfect for you, because I know I'm explaining this from a very like fundamental perspective, but I think this is a good way to go about it. So, mask is just a linear interpolation, or a linear, like, linear graph almost. So, all right, looks like this will be useful to everyone. So we know that it's like a value from 0 to 1. So just think of, like, you see my color wheel here. A mask uses values from here to here. So black to white. No color, no nothing, just black to white. That's why at 0, it is, oh, this might be also hard to explain, but 0, let's just say it's opaque. Opaque. At 1, oh, actually, I think 1, no, 0 is opaque. But wait, okay. One of them is opaque. We'll see in a sec. And one of them is transparent. Okay, so the very basics of masks is that you have a square. If you have like one thing, you create a mask. And in Clip Studio, you only have opaque. Something's either opaque or transparent. Those are the two states. In Photoshop, you actually use black and white. And you can actually use like gray in between to determine different values of like transparency. But in Clip Studio, you only get one or the other. So how do we do that? This is where hitting C and getting access to the transparency is super crucial. It is like essential. Okay, so when you hit C, you get the transparent. You can start painting stuff out, and then you can. So why do this? Like why not just use an eraser and just erase this? Well, here's the thing. When you hit C again, and you're back onto opaque, so this can be anything, any color. So, oh shit, I'm like, just messed it up. Whoops. Any color. I'm on green, but it's opaque, so I can paint back a slow chunk, and I switch to C again. and I can carve it more. I can paint something back. I can paint this back, Shift C, and I can carve more. So that's the very basics of masks. Okay, it's just a way to retroactively and like non-destructively do something. And this goes beyond just this. So masks also work in folders. So if I have green cube, new layer, yellow cube, new layer, red cube, and I make a mask on the layer, the group, you can mask out the entire group. So it works on masks, on layers, or on folders, sorry. That's also something fairly useful. And it also works, I know this is a very common thing to do. Like, if you do a multiply layer, you mask out the multiply layer, you can like carve out the lights like so, and you can add it back with C. Just hit C to like switch back and forth. So that's also another pretty common feature. Yeah, pretty much. I feel like linking. So now time to get on to some of the nuances. So one really annoying thing about Clip Studio is that actually let's go back to this. Let's say I want like I don't want this to be, I want like a middle value. Okay, I don't want 1 or 0. I want like 0.5. Well, that gets a little complicated, because if you do 0.5 like so and adjust the opacity, it's not very consistent, right? It's hard to like stay on the value. Like you can do like layer by layer, I guess, but it's a bit annoying. Yeah, that's also, you can also all erasers work with masks. So since erasers are transparent, they all work with masks. But you can actually make any brush an eraser. If you come here to normal or to blending mode, erase, now you erase with it, or just use transparency. So there's a lot of ways to do this. One setting you can do is replace alpha. So this will replace the opacity of any area with your current opacity. So you see, I'm actually making like this part is 100% opaque, and I'm making it less opaque. So that's one way, but I don't think that's very consistent. So for me, that's pretty much a forever limitation of Clip Studio Paint, because it's pretty tricky to control opacity, I would say, in general. Okay, I can explain that real quick. So under here, some very important brush settings you should have on are definitely brush size, ink, opacity, and the aliasing important. Like thickness, angle, like all this stuff, especially brush density, also important. So settings here. So this one is show slider. This turns into a slider. This one show indicator turns into opacity, like into the blocks. So that's the basics. You just come here and switch to 2. The interesting thing is that you can actually adjust the values for every one of these blocks. So like the end block is 100. This block you want it to be at 75. This block lower and so on and so on. You can even do it here, indicator settings. You can see all the block values like so. And yeah, that's fairly useful. I won't go deep into brush making today because that's a whole other can of worms. And one last thing I do want to show you guys is that with masks, I don't know if you guys ever use an adjustment layer like one of these, or it's under layer, correction layer. So one of these layers, like when you put it in, it's like, or the most common one is like level correction. Everyone knows this, but like yes, control. Okay, there's a difference. There is a difference. I'll explain right now. Control U, this is completely destructive, right? So change it to blue. Now it's permanently blue. If I wanted to turn back to red, I have to hit Control Z, or I have to Control U again and slide it back to the color, right? And I don't think this goes through you can't do this on a folder. You can't do this on multiple layers. It's actually a bit limiting, isn't it? So if we do the same, Control U is hue, saturation, luminosity. That's what it is. So this kind of just pulls it up here. You can actually say no. And interestingly, it made a mask for you. Like, what's that about? So you can do this and adjust the just hue saturation for the entire folder, like so. But let's say, I just want the red one. So what do? You take the mask. If you hit backspace on the mask, it clears it. So this, I actually got this backwards. I got this completely backwards. Shame on me. Opaque is 1. Transparent is 0. I got this backwards. So when a mask is completely blacked out, it means it's completely transparent, so nothing is taking effect. But when I take a brush and I paint into here, you see it's reflecting on my mask. So this layer is applying to this area only. So you can do this, hit C, reverse, stuff like that. And the good thing is you can keep adjusting. Like, I don't like that color. I'm just gonna adjust it. Now it's different. A few things you can do with the mask. You can blur the mask. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. So you can blur the mask, right? You can also sharpen the mask. So this is just sharpen, filter, correction, effect, nope, sharpen mask. So I have it bound to a button. I highly recommend you guys bind the filters to a button, because you don't want to come here and click sharpen 10 times with like 5 clicks each time. I just click this and it sharpens. It's a pretty cool effect, honestly. And then blur. Cool stuff. But it gets crazier. It gets even crazier. I'm telling you right now. So with this effect, if you drag this effect into a folder, it kind of disappears. Why does it disappear? I honestly don't know the theory that well on this, but the folder is on normal, and a normal layer is opaque, and I don't think it goes through to the bottom. Like, it doesn't go through layers. So there's a setting on the layer that says through. You hit through, now it's working normally again, right? So this is some voodoo magic you're about to see. So the masks are actually transferable. You can drag this mask onto the folder. You can drag this mask just on the red. And if you hit Alt, you can actually duplicate the mask. You see it like doubled up. And if you really like this mask, I usually hit Control N, make a new layer, duplicate, and like store this mask right here. Alternatively, there are specialized layers to store masks, but I don't think they're that helpful. You can also hit Control and click on the mask to create the selection. And this selection is a bit deceiving because it actually, if I take this selection, okay, another tip for you to isolate, one second. So I just made a black layer. To isolate a layer, you hit Alt. You can hit Alt and click the eye, and it will isolate the layer. And a shortcut, Control Shift D, or select, reselect. So select, reselect. It brings up your last selection. So do you have a question? Hello? Okay, never mind. So do you mind muting your mic if you don't have a question? Alright, I'm just gonna mute them for now. But with the mask, you can we hit fill. We hit fill, like it actually captures all the finer details. That's what I was gonna say. And we hit Alt again. You can bring back all your layers. So yeah, so that's what I was gonna cover, but it gets crazier because you can stack multiple things. Say a gradient map, like you can like change the tonal correction like this, change the gradient map, and this into the color, lower this, and guess what? You can control it all with a mask. Oh, wrong layer. You can control it all with a mask, and it's all retroactive. You can come back, adjust this, come here, adjust the curve, all that jazz. So masks are very powerful to work non-destructively. And I think we can briefly cover like tone. Let's see. Anyone have any questions so far? Yeah, that's pretty dense. So I've been exploring like tones recently. Let me show you some of my recent stuff that I did for chemo. I don't know if you guys seen it floating around. Oh, 2025. Jesus, I cannot find this stuff. Oh, here it is. But yeah, I've been exploring how to use. Oh, thank you. I've been using tones for this. This is actually more of a tone exercise than pixel art. or pseudo pixel art. I'm using like a 800 by 800 canvas. It's really small. But looking at tones, it really makes you realize what the software is used for. Because Clip Studio is used for like manga, animation, illustration, and it's not exactly used for like I guess like more painterly stuff. The tone the screen tones were a means of like printing, right? So uh, if we're talking about printing, especially to keep costs down, you can't have gradients, right? That's like a no. Like old printers couldn't print any gradients. So how they would achieve gradients was through tone. So the main way I use tone is with the layer property, like this effect, the tone effect. Like you could use like a tone layer, like one of these tone layers. And I'm pretty sure you just come up here and new layer and tone. This is the same thing. But here's the problem. You can't really you can't adjust this. It's just a screen wide like tone. Like you can't scale it or anything, I don't think. Let me see. Just make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, you can adjust like the opacity, but you can't adjust like the density or anything. Oh, sorry. I'm just finding this out. This is actually pretty sick. I didn't know the tone layers were this powerful. Sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, with this layer, definitely, I'll review some of these later. So right now, there's like nothing going on, right? But the moment you put opacity to half, you see something's happening. Lower the opacity, something's happening. And at zero opacity, is 0. So what is actually happening? So if I hit Control U and I change the luminosity, you see the same effect happening. Like, it's quite interesting. So opacity here is equivalent to the brightness. So to test it again, if I do a 50% gray and I alpha lock it and I fill it, it gives me the same effect as before, as if I just did this, right? So pretty much that is to say, this bar, like from 0 to 1, adjusts the density of the tone, and that's independent to this frequency. So if I lower the frequency, see the dots getting bigger. Increasing the frequency, dots get smaller. And you can also change the type of tone to a line. Do this. And if you want the lines to be less dense, you can either adjust it with I was just hitting Control U for hue, saturation, luminosity. You can do this, or you can adjust the opacity, like so. And lastly, I've been addicted to doing this, so I'm gonna show you guys. If you Gaussian blur a tone, you get this really cool like fall off effect to the tone. You can actually keep adjusting the frequency even afterwards. And I don't use posterization because I think it just messes things up. You can adjust the angle, keep moving the angle. Yeah, overall, you can even adjust the mask. Yeah. So you can think of the mask as it's just a layer, but it only has black or white. Uh, in Photoshop, there's gray, but in Clip Studio, it's black or white. It's like opaque or transparent, and you can have various degrees of transparency. And with this tone, one last thing is like, yeah, if you take a black brush, you can, you see, you're actually filling in black. But if you actually go dark gray, you're actually filling in like an 80% tone. So that's pretty cool. And last thing, or very last thing, the coolest thing in my opinion, is that the mask actually interacts with the tone in a really special way. So this setting here, effect range, you can do image mask or image. So when I do this, I'll take a soft eraser and I erase. This actually defeats the whole purpose of using tone, because I'm using opacity, right? Like the whole point of using tone is that it gives the printer an easier time to print. But now I'm introducing like softness and gradients, and now it's gonna have trouble again. So why even bother with the tone in the first place? So when you check on image mask, you actually erase to the density of the tone, and all this like respects like the pattern of the tone. So you can imagine the cool things you can do, right? Like what if you had this on zero luminosity and you take an eraser and you start, so this is not the right way to do it. We do image mask. Now it's like, wow, that's like such a mesmerizing effect. And after you do this, remember, you can still adjust the frequency. You can also still adjust the angle. You can still adjust the type of noise. So you can try out multiple different kinds of setups. So overall, it's really versatile, and I think it opened up a whole new dimension to Clip Studio Paint. And I'm pretty sure if you're like well versed in manga making, like this tone stuff is like pretty obvious. But yeah, to me, this has been like the coolest discovery. And one extra thing is that this kind of works in tandem with the image layer color. And with all things in Clip Studio, to demonstrate the layer color real quick, if I have a black color and a white color and I turn on this, if I change the subcolor to red, you can see. So this is pretty much saying the subcolor, or white will be red, black will be blue, anything in between will be purple. So let me just make a better example. So I have white here, move it down slightly, blend it, blend it, blend it, and now it's blue. So this is kind of like a pseudo gradient map almost. So I like to use this on the tone to adjust the color. And the best thing about the 4.0 update is that you can preview the color of of the color layer. Like that's my favorite part of the update. Such a minor thing. You can also adjust this. So all these things are just like, it's like non-destructive ways. So to repeat, this is under layer color, so it's under layer property. Oh, the gradient thing. Oh, you mean this, right? The layer property. Okay. So typically people use layer property for the border effect, which I don't blame them. It's pretty cool. Like, you can add a border to the layer. You can extract line. I don't use very often. I do tone. And lastly, it's the layer color. So what layer color is doing is that this is the primary color. This is the secondary. So when this is turned off, you see I have black all the way to white. And when I have this on, the primary color is the black. The secondary is the white. So this kind of goes back to this mask theory thing, where black is 0 and white is 1. So this is just doing the same thing, but instead it's like switching out white for red, and it switches out black for yellow, and any gray value in between is just a linear interpolation of the two values, if that makes sense. So it also works in the layer, so that's why I have the shortcut. And the main thing I use this for is so I don't draw on the wrong layer. That's such a lame use for such a cool function. So I draw a circle, and I duplicate this, and I want to make sure that I don't draw on the wrong layer. Make this red. You see, I'm still using black, right? I'm still using the same color. So actually I gotta move this. So if I draw here, I'm still using black. Here, using black. But if I draw here, oh, I'm on the wrong layer. Here, it's like, you can see these are like the layers. So this like automatically takes you a color. Like, it's such a, for me it's been pretty helpful. And yeah, it's one of my favorite features right now. Also, you could actually bring in an image. Like, let's say in here, if you paste in an image, you see it. This image actually gets reconfigured to the rule I set up here. And if I take this image and I put it in here, it's following the rules of this folder. I feel like you should be able to copy and paste the layer property, but unfortunately you can't right now, so a little mad about that, but ideally you could do the same here. So yeah, I think that's enough rambling on the layers stuff. Anyone have any questions regarding this? I know I haven't shown a lot of practical applications besides not drawing on the wrong layer. Seems like we're clear. Are there any requests, any features that you like to, that, like, I don't know, you've seen or you find interesting that you would like to know more about? I might be able to answer those questions for the last half an hour. Oh, the mask erase? Okay. Oh, that was just Control U. You have to bind the hotkey yourself, so I'll show you the bind right now because that's pretty quick. So it's under shortcut settings, menu commands. Should be under edit. Edit tonal correction. Okay, edit tonal correction and hue, saturation, luminosity. And I bind that to control U, but you can bind it to anything you want. So yeah. The reason why I do that is it's like a poor man's way of actually no, it's like a quick way. You know, usually you would duplicate the layer, make it 20% opacity, and make a new layer to draw over it. I didn't want to keep that many layers, and I also want to imitate like traditional drawing, like erasing with a kneaded eraser. So that's why I do it. Yeah, hopefully it's helpful. So I'll just type it in the chat. Menu commands. Yes. Oh, adding noise? My god. Adding noise is like my favorite part. But let me show you guys how to do the do that thing again. So one very cool thing I didn't really mention is that you can do this. You can apply the tone effect to a folder, so it makes things a lot more versatile, right? So let's say I'll reinforce what I talked about earlier. So if you use black, it will be 100% opaque. If you use gray, 50% gray equals 50% opacity. If I make a new one, if I go even lighter, see, this is respecting the opacity. So you can see all these are actually different layers, but I can like move them around freely, and like the tone effect is staying. And in the tone, if I adjust the angle, adjust the pattern, and of course if I adjust frequency, it actually everything applies under. I mean, like all these layers are inheriting the properties of the folder, so it's pretty versatile that way. And of course, we're gonna do our favorite thing, which is mask it. So one really cool thing as well, you say you can use levels on the mask, but right now there's no processing. There's nothing in the mask, so I'll just do a quick erase. If I do levels, watch when I raise the levels, it actually lightens everything. But right now, I need to. This is very important. Effect range, image, mask image. So I don't know the exact workings, but I think it just applies the mask, or applies the tone to the mask as well. And now it should work properly. So if I increase the darks, like you can see, everything is kind of going with it. And if you just take any eraser, like a soft eraser, you can erase. And it works the same with a soft brush, like a triangular brush. Yeah, you can add it back, this. And one thing I like to do is that I'll take this. One thing I like to do is just use black for everything in my folder. So black, do a quick lasso shape, something like this. And let me clear the mask. I want it to be white. So you can see everything is a black blob right now. Uh, but I can actually adjust that with Control U, or actually, I can first erase into it, right? And I hit levels, I can adjust that mask. And if I want some of it back, I can paint it back, and I can even paint it back into black, and you know, get some pretty fine gradients. And one of the main weaknesses of Clip Studio Paint is that you can't do big brush sizes. It starts lagging pretty bad. If I get this big, it's like it gets pretty laggy. So you can shade a sphere with this, right? This, flip it in reverse. Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think it's a really cool limitation too. I mean, we obviously don't have that limitation digitally, but you know, it's cool to work with. And going back to the noise part, I think this adds a lot of like really cool noisy textures, but I'll show you how to add noise. Okay. So adding noise, it's definitely more prominent if you color it, because adding noise on black is not the best. So this is to add color. I like to go here, turn on layer color, and I just pick my favorite color. Actually, I like blue more. So there are a few ways to add noise. First one is here, filter, render Perlin noise, and it generates a noise for you. The tricky thing here, once a computer saves itself, holy shit, it's gonna crash or something. Tricky thing here is you need an empty layer, or else it doesn't work, or it even just uses your current layer. Like if I do this layer, render Perlin noise, it eats that layer. But also the cool thing is it actually works with tones, so hey, that's one more thing. But yeah, you want an empty layer, render Perlin noise, and you get the scale you like, something like that. Hit OK, and then I just turn it into an overlay, and there's your noise. That's like the simplest way. I believe. Let me just make sure. I'll explain what I'm doing later. So, yeah, this noise is not tileable. That means it doesn't scale infinitely. So that's a bummer. Come on. Okay. Sometimes isolating layers like messes stuff up. So the way I like to add noise is come on. Holy crap. You gotta be kidding me. So I have like a preset paper folder that I use, and I do have this asset here that I personally put on everything, this TV noise, and I'll graciously give this to anyone who wants it. I'll put it in the chat in a second. So typically I like to set it up like this in a through layer. I have like a screen, multiply, and then I adjust the density here. But that's like a preset. So I'll show you how to actually do this. So first you would need a tileable texture, which could be tricky to find on the internet. So typically it comes in as like just an image, right? But the cool thing is if you go edit, I'm so used to my shortcut, I actually don't know where to find it. Okay, here. Convert layer. You right click on this layer, convert layer. Convert it from raster layer to image material layer. Hit OK. It gives you this this interesting box, right? Now you can't draw on it, but hey, here's the cool thing: you can mask it. You can still mask it, even though you can't draw on it. So now you can move this thing, and the mask stays there, which is like foreshadowing for something later. So this is my favorite thing in Clip Studio. Like, I love this feature so much. This tiling box. When you hit tiling, when you hit this, it goes on infinitely. So I can scale this as small as I want. It just keeps going. Look at that. Look at that. And I think in the new update, you can even free transform it and make it super trippy. Like, I don't even know what I'm looking at, but it's cool, I guess. It's cool. It's cool. So pretty much what I do is, after I find a scale that I like, I turn into blending mode, usually do overlay, and you can see, oh, like, noise is too big. I'll just scale it some more, and noise is pretty good now. And then I'll control the intensity with the opacity here. And typically, like, this is what the paper layer is. I found these somewhere online, and these are fully tileable as well. So this noise looks like this. This noise is a multiply, and it's like a really light multiply, so you can barely see it. So it's just like paper grain. So I think Clip Studio is almost more versatile in the fact that you can scale the textures infinitely to your liking. So you can stack these on top of one another. You can do this in Photoshop as well, but I don't know if they have a tiling feature there. You can rotate it, and lastly, you can adjust the opacity. But remember, opacity is just a different way. There's a different way to achieve opacity with a mask, and you just have like a little speck like this. You can edit the mask. Come on. Nope. Just gotta tap it lightly. Why is it not working? Okay. Oh, right. You cannot do Control U. You can't do a hue, saturation, luminosity, because there is no color in the mask. It's black and white, so there is no color. So do not try to Control U the mask, like I just did there. You have to hit Control level, and by raising this, I'm actually controlling the opacity. Right, you see it's like slightly grayed, and this actually gives me the versatility to I'm on eraser. Now I'm on a brush. So I can either erase the texture some more, or I can switch to a brush and add more texture to a place I like. So that's another way. But usually I do the opposite, where I take an eraser and erase out some parts. So yeah. So I'll give you guys this noise real quick. That's the noise. I also have more cool noises. Like, I have this grunge thing. I have like this caustic. I've made a lot more in this 3D program. Hope I don't scare anyone with this. So this, I make up my noise in here. So I made like a canvas looking texture. I paste it in here. So I have a shortcut. Just it converts it to a file object immediately. Hit tiling, and this is what my canvas material looks like. My caustic. So there's a limit to how far you want to scale them. So you don't want them to be obviously repeating. And grunge texture. So if you were in my previous lectures, big, medium, small is also important for noise. Because you want big, medium, small noises. The TV noise is like a very small and fine noise that I usually overlay like at a very small like density. The grunge leak is like the big noise, and you can do like the caustic as a medium. So just some ways to use noise. So hopefully y'all found that interesting. Here's some more noises if you want to use these. These are fully tileable, so they're very convenient to use. Oh, a tone layer? So can you find the layer property tab anywhere for you? It should be under, you want to pull it up, it's under window, layer property. Let me know if you're able to find it. But in the meantime, I'm gonna post for chemo because I don't want to die. Let me just. I'm just gonna get one of my backups. This is not cheating at all. Let's see. Oh, you want to? It's under Windows. Layer property. So you can make a tone layer that way, but I find it more versatile to do it the way I'm showing. Yeah, that. And so you see that it's just for a normal layer. As I said, you can also apply it to, you have the same properties for a folder as well. I recommend applying it to a folder because it's a lot more versatile that way. So apply it to a folder. I would just recommend messing around with these, but I always do brightness of the image. And what you do is you want to be using black because black is 100%. Just make the black one. You can try a gray one, light gray. And then after you have that, so I'm just gonna show you if I use the color of the image. So if I use the color of the image, you can see I suppose black and white, and it doesn't show through it itself. If I do use brightness, it's like showing through, it's like going through it. So I like this behavior a lot more. That's why I switch this every time. Just personal preference. Yeah, after that, just play around with it. Change the angles. And to do the mask, you just make a mask and you make sure the effect range uses mask image and just go to town. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Any more questions? I don't think I'm actually too exhausted today to do any more art. I need to set up my stall as well. I'm trying to open another stall with like to do like traditional stuff. So if anyone wants to like if anyone wants to just chat about Clip Studio, you can turn on your mic to chat. And I'm glad this was helpful because I don't know, I noticed a lot more Clip Studio Paint users like this year compared to any previous years. So I thought this would be helpful. The software I just showed earlier is called Substance Designer, and it's like it specializes in making tileable noises. It's used for 3D usually, but I just found a way to. it's kind of a neutered like use for it, but it's fun. Have fun with it. Yeah, I think if there are no more questions, I will probably call it. See you later, Foza. Thank you for attending all the events, and thank you all for coming.